Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another Supercoach Insider podcast. My name is Swiz, and I'm here to talk round 3 AFL teams and my trades being locked in. It's Friday morning, absolute gorgeous day here on the border of Victoria and New South Wales. I'm over in New South Wales at the moment, at Moala, just a stone's throw from Yarrawonga, and thought I'd come in and talk about what's happening, the ins and outs, the Bulldogs Brisbane game, and a couple extra questions that we've been getting. As always, check us out on all our social media platforms. We've got TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, and in particular, Twitter. Check out, if you want to contact us, Swiz26 for me, Supercoach Insider for the boys. As always, thank you to our sponsor, Splash Vodka. Make sure you support them. All right, so as I said, Friday morning, we've got the cockatoos going in the background, so hopefully the audio is much better than when I had the great man, Supercoach Godfather, on the other evening. I apologise for that. He was having some technical problems. There's a few of the guys that said he needs to upgrade his headphones. You know, he's getting enough views now that he should be able to invest in that. So no, we apologise for the echoes. It was... usually when I put it through our editor, it usually will clear that up, but unfortunately it was just too much with the reverb because I was using my phone, so he could hear me. So it looks like we've got a swan in the background joining us there. And also thank you to all the support I've got. Obviously people know why I'm up here and that, you know, I was at a wake for my mum yesterday, so I do really appreciate everybody that has reached out to me. So yeah, good times ahead. And, I do appreciate that. But we are here to talk footy. So first thing we'll get into is the Bulldogs-Brisbane game. Not a great game of footy. I watched probably half of it and that. Well, I was probably watching a bit of poker up here and having a few extra drinks. So it probably wasn't the greatest game to watch. Congratulations to Ugle Hagen. You know, the 5 goals. He's going to be a young star, but obviously dealing with a lot this week. So well done to him bouncing back. Really good night for Tim English owners, the 139. If you are good enough to VC him, fantastic. Make that swap now. That's a no-brainer. So really good effort. Libba looked good, the 120, the 9 tackles in that midfield. We knew he was going to do that. So I know a few people were looking at him as a cheeky pod to start the season, and yeah, he's going to get plenty of that midfield time. McRae did McRae things, 114. I think that's the issue. A lot of people talking to me about trading out McRae. I don't think we're getting the 120 to 125 McRae we used to. It's probably this McRae 110 to 115, and that's going to be a problem for some people. But it's really hard to trade unless you're like looking at, well, it's too hard because LTU is going to be about the same price as him next week. So unless, I think you're just going to have to hold him for now and just see how that goes. Bailey Dale and Richards back in that back line. Richards absolutely killed Crozier's score. So Crozier, who we were looking at as a person that we could potentially bring in, it looks like it's just going to be Bose as that sort of more expensive option. Too many halfbacks there. We know like Caleb Daniels had to go play a different role, but yeah, Richards 111 and moving really well off that halfback flank. So unfortunately, we'll need to cross him off the list. Liam Jones did pretty well, 68, the 4 marks, and that. You know, I know people always want more, but the reality is that's what we're wanting. We're wanting that 65 to 77 guy. That's what I talked about in pre-season. The last 5 years of his scoring when he played, that's where he was, 65 to 77. And that's going to make us, hopefully it's close to that 77, make that 150k, and that will naturally improve us. We'll be able to move him on round 6, round 7, put Zeeble in that back line, and he's done his job for us. So that's all we're wanting. I think sometimes people get too carried away of wanting miracles, and if he can pump out 120 here or there, that would be fantastic. But that's exactly what we got him in. The disappointing one was Bont, 28 possessions, but the 6 clangers, the 6 free kicks against, 89. A lot of people vice-captained him. He was meant to be the solid vice-captain option. I prefer the players out of tonight's game, but if you have vice-captained him, now obviously you're looking for your captain option, and it's probably if you have one of Clary or Laird, because that's the safe option. If you don't have either of them, you're probably maybe then looking at your Tom Green or LDU and hope that he doesn't get tagged by McGuinness, who has been named in that midfield. The other big one from last night was Baker, 95. Hopefully everybody took the advice to put the emergency on him. Most people have Hopper, so if you're looking at trading out Hopper, that's a reverse trade now, or it's keeping him in, as you've got see there in my side. So Baker's the emergency. I was looking at trading Hopper if Baker went sub 70 and Callaghan would have stayed in my side. Baker's got 95, Hopper gets to stay, which is awesome because he's got a great break even, and hopefully it's only a 1 week injury for him. So then that leads to me, actually I'll quickly talk about the lines and then we'll get into what I've done and then we'll get into the team. So Neil 117, pretty solid. Dunkley, who a few people are vice captaining, I did say not to get on Dunkley this week just because the Bulldogs were going out for a bit of redemption there. Still a solid 188, so that was pretty good. Harris Andrews was great if you have him for draft, the 16 mark, so beautiful. Wilmot 69. I'm kind of now hoping Constable doesn't play or Chester doesn't play, so I can get that. I'm pretty happy with a 69. So Constable and Chester both named on extended benches. We're going to know more about that later. And then outside of that, there probably wasn't a lot to talk about for the line. So, probably Ashcroft solid 80. Yeah, we're happy with that. But yeah, real down night for the Lions and their players. And they had Joe Danaher 27, 4 behinds. What an absolute shocker that was. Alrighty, so into my trades and teams. So I've now officially done it. We've got Dacos coming in for Ridley. The midfield, as I said, I'm keeping Hopper. So then Callaghan's the one that unfortunately gets moved out. I really wanted to keep him for at least one more week and see him, but I needed that cash. So that's going down to Chandler in that forward line. And then in the forwards, you see Darcy Cameron for Cunnington. And then that leaves me with 87,000k. And I do like this option best because it gives me a few options next week. Now, the one is Bose that I'm naturally looking at. So potentially that would have been for Jones, but Jones is scoring well enough. So unless Bose absolutely, lights it up next week, most likely it won't be him. But still got the option in case Bose was to go like 110 and the role looks good. And we get to actually see Bose's role now. It looked like Stewart's going to play. So that's kind of better data for what we're looking at for him for long term. The other option is Will Phillips, who's been named too, so potentially Chesser or like a Davey or someone like that will go to Will Phillips if he was to absolutely smash it. So it's Will Phillips like 166, so you obviously need the money to get up to him, or it's at 156. Let's give that proper data on there. North Melbourne. But still, it's more expensive than some of those rookies. 158, sorry. So you're looking at 36,000 to get Chesser up to him. So you need some money in the bank. So that's another option for me. But the big one for the 87, and unless Oliver absolutely smashes it and puts me out of this, but the potential to go Whitster Oliver is something that I will consider next week if Oliver does go really well again. Like break even 149, I really hope it's only like a 120 game from Oliver. So yeah, that works out perfectly, and which sort of goes like 110. But the big thing with Oliver is West Coast, Essendon, Richmond, North Melbourne, Gold Coast, Hawthorn coming up. This was the draw that we were kind of wanting. The reason I didn't start Oliver because I was kind of worried about this sort of how the CBAs was going to work out, and maybe he's going to start a little bit slow, and then I was going to try to get him in there depending on how he went against West Coast and Essendon. But now that he's still smashing it, 113, 135. It looks like going another 110, 120 this week. Then that'll be my no-brainer trade, and then I'll have both of them, and then Darcy Cameron just goes into my ruck. So that's why I talked about Darcy Cameron for flexibility, as we've got all the seagulls coming up and swans to join us here. I don't know if people can hear them in the background, but I've got a bird menagerie all around me. So that's why I thought Darcy Cameron's a good option. I did consider Ridley and Warple, so instead of trading out Wits, instead of trading out Ridley, I'd trade out Wits, put Darcy Cameron straight in there, and instead of Chandler, I'd go Warple. The reason I'm doing that, because that doesn't give me the cash option, it only gives me 3k spare, and that doesn't give me no flexibility for next week. The other reason I was a little bit tempted about it was it would have given me the exact same team as Chris, except for he would have Chandler, I would have had Fergus Green, which gives him better cash gen on the bench, but I would have had vice captain Dacos, and if he went off, I would have outscored Chris this week, and I'm playing him in a couple of leagues. But I've got to think long term, can't just think about short term gloating against my mate up there, and he's going to be having plenty of gloating because I pretty sure Collingwood are going to beat us pretty easily tonight. In regards to AFL teams this week, and our ins and outs. So we got tonight's game, the Pies in, Ash Johnson out, Cox and McInnes. Cox massive. This is where Darcy Cameron just comes, even more important for us. I know Rain Man put out some stats last night about Cameron not performing so well with Cox out of the side, but he didn't take into account that those games were actually Grundy rucking. So I think there might be only the one game where Cameron and Cox didn't play together. So you can ignore that tweet, unfortunately. Cameron's just, I think he's just the one to get if you don't have him, and that should go pretty well. Nank's a pretty good ruckman, but with all Richmond's outs, and we're about to go through them, there's so many points available. So out, Dusty, Hopper, Short and Broad. So we talked about this the other day. If all these guys are out, Hopper's got 119 last week. Short's a guy who goes 90. Dusty can go anything to 90. Broad's a solid 75 guy. And then you're replacing them with Ralph Smith, Ross and Clark. Juddy Clark, showed some good signs last year, but he's probably going to score about a 40. Ross in that midfield could probably go 70 or 80. Ralph Smith's probably a 60, 70 guy. Naturally there's 100 to 150 points, maybe even closer to 200, depending on how these guys perform. Yes, guys, shush, as the Seagulls are really ramping up here. There's extra points in this game, and I think Collingwood, with these outs, are going to do a number. We're talking about Collingwood and their Supercoach pie getting the 1,900 points, and who are those points going to go to? They're going to go to Dacos. They're going to go to Darcy Cameron. Weather's not looking great in Melbourne, so that will probably lead me to maybe vice captain Darcy Cameron and take the risk there, just because I think there'll be a lot more stoppages than that. But that'll be something I'm going to decide as I'm walking to the MCG. If they're running around fine and not slipping over, and the MCG surface is usually pretty good, I'll keep it on Dacos there. So that finalises those, and that's why I finalise my trades that way. Hawthorn, North Melbourne, a lot of people are bringing in LDU, and the vice captain's a good role, but we'll talk about that team in a second. Why? In Will Phillips, out Simpkin, so that's why Will Phillips having that cash there to possibly get him in next week. Good, the Seagulls have racked off. For the Hawks, Morrison, Scrimshort and Tyler Brockman comes in, so that's a potential rookie downgrade for us going forward. And I don't even whereas Brockman's been named at half forward, so that's good. A couple interesting ones: Fergus Green, centre half forward. Warple's been named at half forward flank, so it'll be interesting to see the CBAs. McKenzie currently starting in the midfield apparently with Will Day, and McGuinness. So it's likely McGuinness will go to LDU. So it'll be interesting to see how hard of a tag that is and how LDU is affected by that. I still think if you've got him, put the vice captain in, because that's the whole idea of a VC. If he goes 140, awesome, or even more, you've paid off. If he goes 100 or 80 or whatever, it doesn't matter, because that's what your captain backup is for. I think that's definitely the worth the risk there. A few people have looked at Miller Bergman, that named on the half forward flank, so maybe an option there as well. We've got the Giants for the Blues. The Blues, you've got back Hewitt, out Kennedy, so that's a like for like there. Kelly and Whitfield are back for the Giants. Whitfield's been named at his normal halfback flank, so some people have still got Ash. Ash went really well, I think 93 last week. So how those three work together again, we get more data about that. Finn Callahan is named on the wing. If you've got him, definitely you should try to be keeping him this week. He's going to make 30k even if he goes 60. I think he could potentially go more than that. It's just me. I unfortunately needed to trade someone out to get Dacos and Cameron in, and he was the obvious one. That's pretty well it for that game. We've got St Kilda, the Bombers, which is at the G this week, so just in case you're going to that and thinking it's at Marvel. Jack Steele out, which is the massive news for St Kilda. And then for the Bombers, out Zerk Thatcher, which is big because of what Ridley's role is. At the moment, Ridley's named as the full back, and that's why I've taken him out. I still think he's going to score great points against St Kilda this week, and I kind of would have liked to keep him, but it's, as you say, like Dacos is a must-have, and then who goes out for him? So he's currently named up against Gresham. They've got a really tiny forward line, the Saints, so that'll be interesting to see how maybe they change the game plan and kind of scrub the ball in or run it in instead of just bombing away, because Redmond and Ridley are just going to have a field day otherwise. Winghagen is named in the midfield at the moment. He's up against Setterfield, but I think he'll probably go to like a Merritt, and then Setterfield will probably go to maybe a Crouch. Mason Wood, as I said the other day, really good one for drafts, so definitely consider that. But yeah, the Saints midfield will be interesting. Winghagen will be one to watch now still and see how that goes, or maybe even Hunter Clark, how much extra time he might get in there. So yeah, could be very interesting. And then we've got Adelaide, Port Adelaide, the showdown. Our ins are Finlayson and Bonner and Cleary, so nothing big there. Burton out suspension is probably more annoying for a lot of people in draft, but that probably, I know Chris was big on Houston pre-season, probably does help his scoring. The Crows, nothing really changed there except for Malira. I know a few people were looking at him. And I think Malira's been named on the field, no, on the bench, so nothing really interesting there. Laird is in the midfield. They've named William Drew in there. There's a chance that William Drew does a bit of a job. So yeah, that could be one to watch. Like, we hope Laird just continues to smashing out. Like, I think I put up, if he goes 157 the next 2 weeks, he actually stays at his starting price. Now, I don't think he's going to do that the next 2 weeks, but I know a lot of people jumped off, and it's interesting that he could still be 700k if he was to have a big game this week. Gold Coast, Geelong, and here's a real interesting one. So yeah, Uland is out, admitted. So a few people started him, but the big news is for the Cats, Tom Stewart has been named in. So that's a massive, very quick recovery. Stewart's been named on the interchange bench, so maybe obviously they're going to see how he comes up. It's an extended squad, but yeah, the fact that he has still been named as an in is very interesting. Charlie Constable is named on an extended bench, so definitely watch that. So that's why I said if Constable's out, that would be fantastic, because Chesser comes in, because they have named Will Powell, but he's also on an extended bench. So the Suns' extended bench is very interesting because it's Berry, Chol, Constable, Flanders, Jeffrey, OA, Powell, and Sexton. So I think OA is it? He won't make it, but then like Sexton was their sub last week. They could go any number of options there. So even Flanders could find his way out. So yeah, definitely one to watch tonight when those teams are official. And then yeah, if Stewart comes in, how does that affect that Cats back line, including where does Bowes play? At the moment, they've named him in the midfield, so that would be fantastic if he's playing mid-time, so one to definitely watch. Tanner Bruin in there, I did have a question about that, because naturally I think most people are looking at trading him out, and why can I not even see him on this list? Has he been... He shouldn't have been out. Sorry guys, I'm looking through here. Tanner Bruin. Oh, he's been named on the extended bench as well. You'd think he might keep his spot, but the form hasn't been great. So, yeah, if you do have him and he's named, he could still be named sub this week. So I think he's definitely a must trade. The D's are playing the Swannies. May's back. Van Rooyen's been named. So he will definitely be playing. Tomlinson, Harms, and Gorn's out. And then Buddy's back for the Swannies. Those who traded in Rampy, 80 last week. It's up against a much better forward line this week, so I think, I'd be shocked if he went anything near that, and that experiment will be done. Bowie's been named on an extended bench, and our man Kyle Chandler's been named at half back. So that'd be interesting if Bowie wasn't picked and Chandler's the one they go to. Job security would be even higher then, and potential point scoring. We know half backs is much better than playing forward or half forward. So forward pocket or half forward. So definitely one to consider. We had him in that list of not a must-have, but just the next level down. But yeah, if that's how they end up naming those sides, and he is named at half back, I think he probably does become a must-have there. So that's why I've gone that option. And then the other derby on Sunday night. So no outs at the moment. It's just extended squads. Sean Darcy up against Bailey Williams. And that's where it's probably, I know a lot of people want to trade Darcy after his poor performance. I think you've got to hold him this week, and then maybe it's moved the following week, especially like you've missed kind of English, your score, unless you're going Darcy Cameron, and that cash is going to do something for you. So that might be the other option there. Hewitt is named on that extended bench, and I think he scored like a 2 last week, so that's one to watch because he hopefully will drop cash and might able to get him as like a 120k rookie, which would be fantastic. Chesser is also an extended bench, so if Constable is named and Chesser isn't, you can just swap those two around and take Wilmot's score if you emergency him. So there's a few things to watch. Gimby's been named in the midfield, which is also fantastic. A couple other questions I had. Somebody asked about how we do the moving players. So when they get like dual position status. So Zeeble, let's just say, is going to get his dual position come round 6. So all you need to do is say trade McKenna out. For example, he goes out. Zeeble then will have the dual position. He goes out in the forward line, into the back line, and then you just bring in a forward. Or you could then move, say, Davey into the forward line and bring in a midfielder. That only costs you 1 trade. So yeah, for a few people, we get a lot of newer players as well playing Supercoach. So that's how that works there. I know a few people have been mucking up their captain loopholes and that. So for me, if Dacos goes well tonight, all I do is put Marshall or Witts on the bench, put the emergency on them. Madden comes on the field, and you put the captain on him. But then you're just going to make sure going into the following week that you've swapped all that around, and that's where a couple of people get in trouble. I know I think somebody accidentally captained Wilmot last night, so you've always got to watch when you reverse your trades that where your vice captain, because a lot of people get in trouble. They press reverse trade or undo, and then your vice captains or your captains sometimes can move. And I did that before when I took off Dacos, for example. I took him out because I was playing around with a couple of things. Yeah, my VC jumped to another player, so you've just got to watch that, and it's one that gets people in trouble, and it can completely ruin your season. In particular, a lot of people have been asking again about the must-have about is it Zeeble, is it Setterfield? I think at this point it just comes down to either your gut feeling and how does it balance your team, and that if you need the extra forward, like I think Zeeble's the better option than Setterfield, because as we've answered this a few times, just because he's going to get the dual position, and Setterfield plays later in the rounds coming up, so he's only going to be a captain option, not a vice captain option. I think he'd be a great VC option. He won't be that good of a captain option because there is that risk that he could go 90, but as a VC, he could still pop out on 140. So that's definitely something to consider there. A couple of people saying they might hold Horton Francis. That's no problem. Playing Adelaide, he should bounce back this week. And yeah, so for me it's Zeeble, then it's Setterfield, but that's Dacos is number 1. If you don't have Dacos, but most people do have him, but if you don't, it's just move heaven and earth to get Dacos, because just way too much ownership. I think of the top 1%, like everybody but maybe 5 people own him, or something ridiculous like that. So you're just gonna you might anti-pod it, and if you get away with it, fantastic. You've caught up so much ground on everybody else. But if Dacos does anything plus 120, your season, you're just going to be ruined, too far behind. I know a lot of people play for leagues as well, so that's fine. But I would rather just go, okay, everyone's got Dacos, I'm just going to play him, and that's just a nullified one for the leagues too. So you want to try to pick your pods elsewhere, and that's where, like Chris, I was trying to maybe look at balancing my side so it's very similar, but then he would have that ongoing advantage over Chandler where I'd have Fergus Green. So I'm happy to run Witts and on field. Hopefully it ends up being Wilmot's score, and hopefully Witts has a 120-ish game, and Warple maybe only comes down to an 80, and maybe Ridley has an 80, and we can balance out there. And then hopefully my vice captain Dacos scores really well, and then his captain Laird might score less, and I end up still getting up on him anyway. So I would rather run like a couple pods there like that instead of the big pod, the big ownership guys. So, and it gets a bit hard in Supercoach because like players like Setterfield and Zeeble, it would have been so much better if they had kind of a quieter week last week and then had the big jump on, because now everybody's jumping on them too. But at least there's not as much risk, because with everybody getting on them, they have a bad score like Bont last night. Bont has a bad score, who cares? Because everybody has him. If you don't have Bont, great, that's a great day for you, because hopefully your player comes down and scores a 120, you've got a 30-point advantage on the rest of the competition. But that's usually, I like the safety in numbers, and that's where I try to pick those couple pods to start off with, and then as the season goes on, especially as it comes through the middle of the year, then I'll look at a couple of those pods to hopefully break away from the group. But yeah, safety in numbers for now, unless you obviously get injuries. And that was an interesting one too, because a few people asking me, well, who do I trade? Because there's a couple of people that sent me. Grimo's a great example. Perfect team to start off with. And they've had no injuries. It looks fantastic, but they've actually got no one to trade. And there's players that they need to now get in. And it's so hard to trade out. Where those people actually had Steele and Gawn injured this week, it's actually nearly an advantage, because people are going, okay, I need Darcy Cameron, I need LDU, I'll just go get them, and I don't ruin the rest of my team. So it's amazing how sometimes, maybe not Gawn as much because you got the 0, but the Steele one, he still scored well last week, and Steele down to LDU, make some cash, get a good scoring player, fantastic. So no, that's worked out for some people, and yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of see how the rest of the weekend plays out. So yeah, watch out for those teams tonight, and it's really about Chesser and Constable. They're the two you need to watch, just to say, because if neither's name, I would be taking Wilmot's score there in the back line. Apart from that, as always, continue to send in your questions, and that we'll try to get and answer them. And once again, apologise for that echoing issue with the great man, Supercoach Godfather, but we'll try to get him on soon. Thank you, and we will talk soon. Bye.